when we were kiddies, used to play cowboys and Indians, and you pretended to shoot each other. Whereas in cowboys and Indians, people got up again to fight another day. The people got shot in Normandy, they didn't get up again.
Sunday, the 22nd of April 2018. It's the annual York Inset Scooter Club's ride to Beagleham. Funds are being raised for cancer research for the University of York. Clustered outside the historic Clifford's Tower in the centre of York, participants line up and eagerly await the start of the ride. Headlining the event are two members of the York Normandy Veteran Group, Ken Cooke and Ken Smith, two of only a handful of remaining local D-Day veterans.
1, 3, 1, 2, 3. Hey! And again a bit louder. 1, 2, 3. Hey! Thank you very much. Enjoy your run.
Well into their 90s, they still regularly attend events and talk to people about their experiences.
I came back from holiday after visiting Bay War Cemetery, and I decided out of the blue that I would get mixed up with things, and I joined the Normandy Veterans Association. In York we had 65 members. So I've been to 60 funerals. People don't remember that D-Day was one day, certainly a wonderful day, but the war went on for nearly a year after that, and the fighting didn't really start till 2 or 3 days afterwards, although they had 10,500 casualties on the one day.
York is littered with reminders of its long history, dating back to Roman times. But aside from such majestic behemoths as York Minster that highlight the distant past, visions of more recent history are more discreet. On the anniversary of Victory in Europe Day, or VE Day, on the 8th of May, the York Normandy Veterans hold their own walk around the city, engaging with members of the public and the local press. The two Kens are in attendance, as well as Bert Barritt, another York Normandy veteran stalwart. Such meetings with the public cannot be stage managed, and all manner of strange encounters can occur.
Would you like to get on the bike?
One foot on there.
I think a lot of people have no idea when VE Day was or what it concerns. I don't think they're bothered nowadays somehow. Why, I don't know. I said to a student one day, I was down in Asda collecting for the veterans, and he came up and said, "What are you collecting for?" I said, "We've got for funds for Normandy, for the members to go and visit their pals who never came back." And he says, "What's Normandy? What is Normandy?" I mean, when you get an answer back like that, you wonder what they've been learning at school. You know, it puts me off.
To come back from Armistice Day, walking through the centre of York, and a group of youths, 18, 19, 20, coming opposite way, I always put a jacket on over my blazer. I never walked through York, normally. And these lads came along and they were giving me the Sieg Heil and all the Nazi things.
On the southeast verge of York, tucked beside the Yorkshire Museum of Farming, is the Derwent Valley Light Railway, a volunteer-run railway that stretches a mere 643 metres. Their generosity, however, travels far further.
Yeah, I'm Tony Frith, and me and my wife actually bought this locomotive, which round tree number 3, which worked at Rowntree factory, and we bought it because it was on a scrap list from another locomotive. You probably can hardly hear me now because it's actually driving now. It's going past me. Somebody else is driving it and bringing it up into the station platform. But yeah, that's what we did. Yeah, originally spent 20 years at York factory at Rowntree's and everything, and when we always have an annual visit of the Normandy Veterans, York Normandy Veterans, I was told that Ken Cooke used to be a blacksmith at Rowntree's after he'd been demobbed, and Ken went on and he come off. I gave him this little cab ride. He came off and he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Look after my engine, lovely." He was thrilled to bits.
The chap that renovated the engine, he was a train driver. His wife was a station master, and she said to me, "Stand on the edge of the platform." Anyway, the engine comes, all freshly painted, everything, you know, and a curtain on the cab side. And Glynis, the station master, said, "You stand there, and when I tell you, pull the cord." Pulls the cord. My name's on the plate. I could have dropped to the platform floor that day. I'm not kidding.
But he did write us a lovely letter later on and said, I'm not ashamed to tell you, but when I got home, I had a few cries. I thought, brilliant.
That was good.
Very, very good, yeah.
Nothing beats a good old-fashioned day trip, but this is no regular outing. Some of the veterans are heading northeast to Malton, to Eden Camp, a military-themed museum for a gathering of veterans.
Sandy, isn't it? Danger, unexploded bomb.
Unexploded bomb.
On this occasion, Smudger and Cookie are joined by a newcomer to the group.
My name is Douglas Petty. I'm 95 years of age. I'm pretty healthy, I think, for my age. I'm still pretty active, and I'm very interested, by the way, in continuing my association with the RAF. Went through the normal training procedure, ended up to be trained as a flight engineer at St Athan. Once the landings had taken place, the forces were moving forward in the Dordogne region in France. And apparently Germany was withdrawing troops and armaments from the Russian front to try and stop the landings. And they were coming down through Belgium to the Dordogne region. And at a place called Azy, which was the Dordogne region, fairly near the French coast, was one of the crossings. And it was a river crossing and a railway crossing. So people in authority must have decided one of the ways of stopping them was for a number of bombers to go over and do a daylight raid and try and break the railway crossing and the bridge crossing to stop the German forces coming over to try to defend themselves from the D-Day landings.
The parade will consist of bands, standard bearers, veterans and others. All are welcome to march. Right? And then there is
Others, that's you.
When that door opens, I'm just going to throw him off.
I bet you can't get him over that fence.
I do my best.
I'm going back on another bus.
Right.
When I first met Ken, one of the very first things he said to me was, we were introduced by you, Nick, weren't we? And he said, "You buggers bombed us." Do you remember it? I said, "I'm sorry, Ken." I said, "But from that height up there," I said, "we weren't." I said, "Don't forget," I said, "bomb sights and all the equipment on an aircraft were pretty antiquated compared with the modern instruments, etc."
You've heard about friendly fire, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Yeah, it isn't.
It isn't very friendly at all, is it?
It isn't. Mind you, I'm glad they've eaten this.
It's like here today.
I don't know why I'm with him. He's a good friend.
Keeps you on your toes, that's why.
Yes.
It's always nice to have that friend who keeps you on your toes anyway.
I think I'm the only one who didn't come dressed in preparation. Well, I know it sounds funny to say it, but I'm not one for walking around all the time with this lot on and sort of, in a sense, bragging about what you did. I'd prefer to pretend. I don't consider myself a hero. I think the people who were heroes were people in the army and the navy who were subject to it all the time. I could never imagine being in the army and crawling across fields and things like that and be continually being shot at.
To an 18-year-old, it was just chaos. You know, you didn't know what you was doing half the time because you was getting... You got in your slit trench or whatever, and then, or dived into the bottom of a hedge when they were shelling. And there was either hit or miss. I was lucky, they missed me for the first month.
At St Lawrence Church beside Hull Road, the York Normandy Veterans are present at the church hall to recall their memories in front of a local audience.
As an 18-year-old, it was like a new adventure, like a Boy Scout outing. We were fighting on 4 fronts, really. We had the Navy firing at us. We had our own artillery firing at us. We had the RAF bombing us. And on top of that, we had the Germans firing at us. So we were in a right pickle.
Who was the best shot?
Best shot?
Yeah.
Well, they wanted RAF. Because from my information...
Attending the talk is Sid Metcalfe, who served in reconnaissance during the war.
There's a crew of 4 on a Brent gun carrier. We got ambushed on the way back, and George Fox, I can remember to this day, he was killed at side of me, and all his stump was blown out. We put up a fight, and the Germans had come round the corner of a gate post with a machine gun. As we looked up, the Germans there with a machine gun, and all they had to do was press a trigger, we'd have had it. And they took us prisoners of war.
As a prisoner of war, Sid was used as slave labor in a German copper mine, where he suffered extensive injuries after a section of the mine collapsed on top of him. Sid was eventually liberated by US forces. Given the seriousness of his condition, Sid was demobbed and he returned to civilian life.
My parents didn't know I was coming home. They had no idea, because they knew I was a prisoner of war, that's all. And my dad was in the first, we'd been in the First World, he was on the ARP, Area Precaution, and he said, "Oh, the bloody hell's this time of night?" He sent my mother down. She said, "It's Sid, he's home. And he shot down them stairs like a rocket. He says, and there was no more sleep that night. But it took me a long, long time to get right. And I was going to Leeds for exercises on my back. Exercises that need to get me muscles back. I was in hell of a state.
The Pegasus Bridge, Normandy, France, the 5th of June 2019. Liberated in the early hours of the 6th of June 1944, the capture of the Pegasus Bridge over the Caen Canal was one of the first acts of the invasion. After the war, the canal was widened, and the original bridge no longer rests upon the canal, but instead lies at the Pegasus Memorial Museum. A ceremony is taking place at the museum today, and many veterans are invited. The two Kens are present, and like all of the veterans here, are something akin to celebrities.
Okay, we need you up the front, mate.
You come round, Ken.
Right.
You come round.
Hi, thank you.
What's your rank
sergeant,
No,
corporal,
no, no, no.
private?
Private when I went in,
Yeah.
private when I came out. Because my voice is not strong. And
to give the orders. Merci beaucoup, monsieur. Thank you so much, Ralph.
You're very welcome.
For everything.
You're very
and
welcome.
For my liberty, for my freedom.
Veterans, General, Mesdames, Messieurs les Maires, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Memorial Pegasus. Over several days, veterans, their families and friends, along with the people of Normandy, will be commemorating the 75th anniversary of D-Day and the Battle of Normandy. I would like to finish by saying to the veterans that for all of us here who didn't live through those momentous events, we will never forget your courage, your devotion to your task, and to your sacrifice, and that for a moment in time, the fate of the free world once rested on your very young shoulders, and we are humbled to be in your presence today.
As part of the ceremony, the Legion d'Honneur is being awarded to some of the veterans in attendance. As it happens, the York Normandy veterans have already been bestowed with this prestigious award.
Well, I think if we come back to what I'm wearing, the various things, I mean, those are all combat medals. They're not award for either bravery or anything like that. But that is, I think, is totally different to the others. That is an honour. And that's what it described as an honour, whereas the others are just combat medals. And there is a big difference between the two.
Because it is the highest award that the French can give. In fact, it's the only award. They don't have the CBE, the OBE, the one thing and another, like we have. They just have the one for military and for civilian.
Well, when we go over to Normandy, the public there really appreciate what we did, because we've got some marvellous receptions when we go over there, and over here they're a bit more reserved about it. You know, some people just come up and shake our hands and thank us for what we did. Other people, they just look at us and, you know, and just carry on what they're doing. They don't seem to be all that interested somehow. I don't know why, but it's puzzled us for a long while. The people in England, you get the odd one or two coming up and saying thank you, or shaking your hand and asking you questions about Normandy, what you did and what you didn't do. We get that sort of thing. But when we go over to Normandy, it's marvellous.
The Kens then proceed to Ronville, and the group visit the war cemetery located there.
Oh, like that.
Vous êtes aussi un vétéran. Tenez, monsieur, merci. C'est pour vous.
Oh, merci, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Encore un, j'ai de la chance. But we are the lucky ones, you know, the French, because of these men.
It fades, but at the time, the Norman people weren't too keen on us because we killed their animals, we ruined their farmhouses, and killed, I think it was 70,000 French civilians during the invasion. These are things people forget. So how do we other people expect them to welcome us? They do now. I mean, it's just like being treated like royalty. But it wasn't always like that. There were some very brave French people, did some brave things during the war, and took some bad punishment too. But there's so many cases. The atrocities committed by some of the SS, but on the other hand, there were some quite civilised, where they packed up and let us pick up our dead and collect them and withheld their fire. Another lot will booby trap an injured man, so that if you went to help him, you'd go up. But the German army was not just one army. There were several different types of people, like ourselves, older men, that all they wanted to get the job done and get home. You can't lay down, as Paul said, you can't give one statement, you've got to get it. I've been responsible as a machine gunner as well, and I've been responsible for the killing or wounding of hundreds of people. Now I can't even recollect or remember having to do the killing.
The veterans' trip to Normandy might be over, but there are plenty of events happening in York that require their attendance before the month is out. The York Army Museum is hosting performances of Bomb Happy, a play by Helena Fox that comprises entirely of verbatim quotes from both Kens, Bert Barritt, as well as 2 York Normandy veterans who passed away before the play first went out on tour, George Meredith and Dennis Haydock.
We're billeted in a German village, Hillensberg, and all the civilians are being moved out so we can occupy their houses. December now. The squadrons in the battalion have to take turns holding the front line. The area is like a flat moorland covered in a thin layer of snow. We change places with those dug out nearer the enemy.
And it comes across different to what you spoke yourself. You told a story, then when you hear the actor telling the same story, and you're thinking, well, I said that, I did that. And it's a queer feeling. I can't explain it really, you know.
And now we're wading ashore. And in one way, I'm pleased we're not in the first wave. We're seeing some of the wounded. Some of the people we know wounded. Our Padre's been wounded. He's sitting up against the wall on the floor with a damaged arm. So we want to get off quick, you know. But trouble is it takes all day and we don't meet up with the first wave.
To hear the words spoken and you said that they weren't being said at that moment, yeah, it was quite special, wasn't it? During the war, nobody ever thought that we'd be making a play about it. And not a lot, really. We haven't come across a lot of units that have come up with a story, have we?
There's one thing I'd like to make clear, that every word that these professional actors have uttered are the verbatim words of our 5 veterans at the time. Bomb happy is a slang word that we use for being under fire for many days at a time. It might sound that it's a bit frivolous to use that word, but it does describe the condition that you become.
And we got to know when the shells was going over, if you could hear them whistling, you know they'd gone. But you couldn't hear them when they was on you. They were there before you could hear any sound.
It is the 22nd of June, and at the Church of St. Lawrence a service of thanksgiving and remembrance is being held to mark the 75th anniversary of D-Day. Rarely does such a large congregation meet in this beautiful parish church. Cooke, Smudger, Bert and Sid are present for what is indeed a very special service.
They ask us why we do it, why we still parade. Now we are getting older and just a little frayed. It's not for the sake of glory or the medals on our chests. It's simply we are comrades who stood the final test. On the 6th of June, that fateful day, a day we will never forget, many a lad laid down his life and paid the final debts. So when you see a veteran, give the man your hand, for those medals on his chest were won in a foreign land. And when God asked the question, "Who are you, my man?" I will proudly answer, "Sir, I am a veteran."
But I used to take the car into Europe, go touring, camping, and I used to call back at Bayeux to the British War Cemetery, where my school friend I grew up with, played with, did everything with, was killed several days after D-Day in the Durham Light Infantry. And I used to call there because there was no one from his family that could go. Yeah.
And we meet this morning in a very different kind of setting to the beaches of Normandy, my word. It's a world away, isn't it?
To me, the real heroes are still over in France, in Normandy, and in other parts of the world as well. They're still there. Them's the heroes to me. We're not heroes. We have to go back to see our friend, our pals. We have to go back to see that they're okay.